Good afternoon, audience. This is Rocky the Dog Show. This is your host, Joe Vinny. We're on a Monday afternoon podcast. We're going to touch on several topics. One is how evil the mainstream media spoke to Trump prior to his election and how they've kind of knocked the crap off now a little bit. We're going to go over Trump choosing the FBI director, new FBI director, Kash Patel, and let's just see where this leads us during this video.
Any boys.
Just remember, like and subscribe. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Rumble, and like and subscribe on YouTube, and also follow me on TikTok. I love TikTok, but they're censoring me a lot. I wish they would not censor me. I wish everybody would share my videos, share my links. Thank you. God bless you.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. I typically wouldn't start off a breaking news video with an old tweet from a washed-up CNN and Washington Post White House reporter named John Harwood, but man, is this ever part of the last 2 decades. In fact, Joe Biden has been a venal liar who's deceived the American people and exposed now fully and thoroughly that the Democrat Party is a Ponzi scheme. The Democrat Party is an elite cabal of parasites who use the system to enrich themselves and protect themselves and their family. And you be damned, right? And that's the only takeaway from this, because Joe Biden has looked down the barrel of a camera time and time again and lied.
To accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is.
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
When would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. Hey, we go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
You've also said several times that the president.
There's got to be some law about Jan St. Clair, how she is deliberately, intentionally deceived, willfully, intentionally misled the American people, knew what she was saying was untrue, but went forth and said it anyway with vengeance and dignitary. And there's got to be some law that we could bring her up on charges for what she's done. She is, in my opinion, committed high crimes and misdemeanors and is guilty of that.
President would not pardon or commute the sentence for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
No, because no one is above the law. That's right. Except for an 11-year period where Joe Biden pardoned his son, starting with his work in Ukraine, in the largest pardon in presidential history, modern presidential history, bigger than Watergate. He pardoned Hunter Biden for 11 freaking years. Going back.
See, we overthrew the government in Ukraine, so the CIA and the deep state, which is the dark side of the FBI, the NSA, the Pentagon, a lot of the generals, we're all on board with the military-industrial complex on beating the drums on Ukraine. And, 1.2 million people have been killed in Ukraine and Russia, and they're good-looking people. Russians are good-looking people. Ukrainians are good-looking people. And I'm so sorry, 65% of their country's in rubble. And the young people are just decimated. Mostly, 700,000 Ukrainians have no more mothers, fathers. It's just horrible. And it's sad, but it was so avoidable. And Zelensky, we overthrew him and installed him as the puppet in 2014. He went along with our edicts and our red lines. And even when there was a peace agreement signed 3 weeks after the Istanbul, Turkey, after the war had started and Russia was pulling their troops out, They sent over Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson went and said, Zelensky, rip up this peace agreement. It holds no meaning. We're going to get you into NATO, and we're going to help you with the U.S. troops and so forth, which neither happened. And 750,000 Ukrainian men are dead, and the rest of the women and millions of them fled with their children, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas will never see their fathers again. They do not have enough men to fight this war anymore. So this war is begging to be stopped. And thank God that Trump got in. And all of a sudden, see, notice the war stops. Notice how they're talking about Israel peace agreements already. You notice how everything before Trump is even in office, things are changing. A breath of fresh air. There's no more this wokeism and LGBTQ and you know, all this kind of crap that has plagued our schools with vaccinations and mandatory masks and lies about COVID and just the lies and hypocrisy that they perpetrated on the United States citizens and the sovereign citizens around the globe for the past, 7 years has been just disgusting.
Back to 2014, January 1 of 2014. That's when Joe Biden sent his dumbass son over to Ukraine to be the bag man for their corrupt criminal enterprise. Joe Biden makes history, first president to pardon his criminal son. Yeah. So it's all lies. And in a world filled with criminal liars and media propagandists like John Harwood, it's great to have a mask off moment. It's actually really refreshing to see the system for what it is. The system is not about Joe Biden loving his son. Hunter Biden is an adult. Hunter Biden is someone who is 55 years old. Hunter Biden is not some dumb kid, freshman year in high school, who just had a bad rap. Hunter Biden is a...
Let's pause this. You see this? This is off the laptop. And he had a crack pipe and a coke pipe, a meth pipe in his mouth during these times with him with no clothes on, no clothes before his niece, which was 14 years old, underage girls. He was in China, and there was a part in China I seen on the laptop myself. The Chinese guy was sitting in the chair. The girl was on the bed. Hunter Biden was naked in front of the girl, and the Chinese guy said, "Slap." And he says, "I don't want to slap her." "Slap her!" And he slapped her. And she started to cry. Then the Chinese guy said something to Chinese in her. She stopped crying. She sat back up. And then he said, "Rape her." And he said, "I don't want to rape her." But he ended up raping her, punching her in the face. Then they cut the camera, and that was all that was seen in that particular scene. But that was enough. I mean, you're gonna slap a underage girl because some old fat Chinese dude in the chair is telling you to, because he wants to buy your vote out, man, and have you sold out to him. You are evil, Mr. Not Trump, Biden, Joe Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden. You guys are evil.
A lawyer who set up a sophisticated criminal enterprise of shell companies to explicitly stop paying American taxes, millions in taxes. Hunter Biden laundered money from all around the world illegally without registering as a foreign agent. Hunter Biden is a criminal on the highest possible degree, and Joe Biden is simply pardoning himself. And I think this is really important before we move on to what Trump said about this, that this isn't about Hunter. The media would have you think that Hunter Biden is a little schoolboy who just got up with the wrong crowd. No, this is about Joe Biden. That's why the pardon goes all the way back to Ukraine. Joe Biden is trying to protect himself. He's not protecting his son. Any father who would want to protect his son would send his son to jail.
You see, the January 1st, 2014 through December of 2024, that's when we installed the Zelensky as our puppet. We dethroned a sovereign government, and the CIA came in there with NATO troops, along with dark forces and private military of our government, and dethroned the sitting president, had him killed, and installed Zelensky. And Zelensky had all these red lines he could not pass. See this January 1st, 2014, that's when the coup happened.
Fathers would they would let their son, if your son is 55 years old and running a international Ponzi scheme to defraud the American public of taxes and then doing an enormous number of degenerate sex and moral crimes, is a total and complete sex trafficker along with a junkie, drug addict, and misusing a firearm, I think that any responsible, reasonable father would say, well, he is 55, he's a lawyer, he's going to pay his debt to society, and that's actually what love looks like. What love looks like is consequences for bad behavior. That's actual love. No, this isn't about that, because that's what actual love would look like. This is about Joe Biden pardoning himself. It's always been about Joe Biden's love of not his son, because he would never let his son get this far. You would never put your son, if he was a junkie, in charge of hundreds of millions, billions of dollars flowing in from corrupt sources like China and Ukraine. You would never do that. If you actually loved your son, you would have never put Hunter in that position. This was only about Joe Biden's love of himself. His son be damned. Joe Biden's run his son through the meat grinder again and again and again. It's because of Joe Biden that we're even in this position. So I'm disgusted by some on the right saying, oh, this is about a father's love for his son and we shouldn't care about it. Nope. Wrong on all fronts. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone was saying the same thing about this decision by Joe Biden, that this makes it so much easier for Donald Trump to pardon J6ers. Hunter Biden's pardon is a gift to J6ers. It makes pardoning every single one of them so much easier and acceptable. Yes, truly, everyone's saying that Donald Trump should, in day one.
Yeah, that means that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden actually would have all those people rot in hell in January 6th, that fake committee with Liz Cheney, who needs to go to jail herself. And the judges on that commission were not elected. They were non-elected judges. They had a secret panel. That was horrible what they did to those January 6ers. They gave them no right to habeas corpus due process. I know that TikTok's not going to like that I said that, but it's true. You can Google it. January 6ers, they do not get due process under National Defense Authorization Act. There was Patriot Act 1 by George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Patriot Act 2, the Save America Act, and right before he left office, he granted us the beautiful National Defense Authorization Act, which gives no right to habeas corpus to anyone that is detained or commissioned a crime against the government or held without due process, and rights to passage and rights to due process, and rights to habeas corpus, to a trial, to a lawyer, to nail clippers, to sunshine, to a beautiful, a normal cell, for commissary, for a phone, for letters, for mail, for not being put in the dark part of a dungeon, having your knuckles broke. And a couple senators went there and seen them. Marjorie Taylor Greene was one, and there was another senator, I forget who, the second one, I think it was Joe Manchin, and said that he never thought that by signing the NDAA would be used against American citizens, and they need on day one, Trump needs to overthrow that House bill.
Walk in and say, blanket pardon all J6ers, enough is enough. And lo and behold, Donald Trump hopping on Truth Social with this take last night, right on time. Does the pardon given by Joe and Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been imprisoned for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. Donald Trump stepping up. The only comment that he's made about this pardon, Donald Trump saying, yeah, what about J6? What about the January 6th political prisoners? Joe Biden has only ever cared about himself. Joe Biden has used his position in power to persecute and terrorize Americans, innocent Americans, important factor in Trump 2.0 and now he's kicking salt in the wound of the party brand he helped destroy. President Trump, you now have overwhelming justification to pardon all J6 defendants with the stroke of a pen. And this is just two catastrophically bad decisions at the end of 5 decades of patriotic service, seeking re-election and pardoning his son. Joe Biden has transformed his net impact on America to a positive to a negative. This is, of course, one of the most generous takes on it. I would disagree with 5 decades of his family ahead of his country. This will tarnish his reputation. Yeah, Joe Biden down bad, and everyone's saying, oh, wow, would you look at that? It's exactly the Burisma timeline. So it's what Joe Biden did for himself. That's the story here. Nothing else. People are losing it on Joe Biden. If you pardon Hunter, I'll be...
Election campaign and ending up with $20 million in debt, it seems Kamala Harris is...
You know, it is Thanksgiving. People are going to have some drinks tonight. A lot of people, they are. I know, Vinny, you're not.
I'm not.
You know, but some people are going to have some alcohol. They're going to spend time with Jack. Jim Rob already knew he went to...
Well, after raising more than $1.5 billion during her failed election campaign and ending up with $20 million in debt, it seems Kamala Harris is desperate for more cash because the vice president is still reportedly pumping Democrat donors for money weeks after the election loss. Joining us now is journalist, writer and co-founder of the Based Politics podcast.
Whatever stock she owns, they need to sell it. Whatever treasury bonds she owns, they need to sell it. CDs, they need to sell it. Whatever she has priced in her home, it needs to be sold, auctioned, so she pays her $20 million debt. She doesn't need to ask Americans for another dime ever in the rest of her life.
Brad Palumbo. Brad, good to see you. Look, either the Democrats have no idea how to manage money or can't read the room. I suspect both at this point. But how bad of a look is this?
It's pathetic and insulting. I mean, you blew $1 billion, including on celebrity endorsements and building 6-figure podcast sets to be built up for an hour interview and then torn down. And yet you have the audacity to come to hardworking Americans who can barely afford to buy groceries, many of them, because in part due to the Biden-Harris administration's policies, and say, give us more money. We squandered it all. Now we're millions in debt. They should hang their heads in shame. But also, any American, I mean, they send these fundraising emails because they work, right? And any American who is actually still giving these people money needs to get their head checked, because you could be sending malaria nets to Africa. You could be feeding the homeless, but instead you're giving Kamala Harris more money. At this point, people, their capacity for stupidity sometimes does amaze me, honestly.
Hey, Brad, Hollywood star George Clooney is reportedly furious that Barack Obama used him to force President Joe Biden out of the US election. Clooney's newspaper article calling for Biden to stand aside for Kamala Harris was widely credited for changing the course of the election.
You took a big swing, and thank God you hit that ball out, because
it could have gone very badly.
It could have gone very, very badly.
Still go badly.
Well, listen, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be going pretty well right now, but.
Yeah, well, it did go badly for the Democrats. Kamala Harris, of course, was trounced in the polls, but Brad Clooney is now complaining that Obama, who sort of manipulated him into doing the dirty work on his behalf, has now left him to take most of the blame for the election loss.
Yeah, I mean, that take aged like milk, obviously. We don't know how Biden would have done, but it is kind of hard to imagine he could have done that much worse than Kamala Harris. I mean, this is a historic loss. It is kind of sad in a sense that Obama and other members of the Democratic elite didn't have the courage to say publicly, yes, Joe needs to step down, and instead they outsourced that dirty work to a
He's a dishonest broker. He's a liar. He spent the past 4 years, beyond 8, telling us that Trump is a uniquely awful person, racist, sexist pig, fascist, Nazi, Hitler. That you don't negotiate with that. You don't make up with that. That's not somebody who was like, I didn't like Trump, but I'm willing to try. That's a dishonest, bad actor whose voice should be excised from the conversation, not propped up, not listened to, not made easier or more robust by access to the now sitting president or about to be. No, that nothing good is gained by Trump and Joe Scarborough having a come to Jesus. The only point in Scarborough doing it is his ratings are in the toilet. They are circling the bowl right now. He's feeling desperate that his multi-million-dollar contract is going to evaporate, along with that of his wife, and they'll do anything to try to save their own careers. I mean, I've been watching them, Jillian. I watch All in Media very closely, along with my team. And he is the one who was out there saying, the best Joe Biden ever, the best ever. 2 months before he imploded on that debate stage, he lied over and over and over because it was important to him to have access. Biden watched Morning Joe. He wanted to be in this power-broking position. And so he lied to cover for the guy. Then Kamala got on board. He started lying about her, telling us what an amazing candidate she was and how inspirational. I mean, it just couldn't be honest about any of her weaknesses.
I mean, that's the truth. That's really went on. And do you think these people, audience, can you leave in your comments, please? Do you think they need a pass, to give them a pass, or to extricate them from any type of responsibility of podcasting, or whatever it might be, bringing the news to any of the people in the United States ever again?
The lies about Trump, none of that should be rewarded with access to Trump. And by the way, it pleases no one. His audience doesn't want to see it because he's made them hate Trump with a passion. And the right doesn't want to see it because we've been watching Scarborough and already hate him with a passion. So the only reason to do it is to try to jack up numbers because he thinks there'll be some sort of hate watching or curiosity watching if he manages to get Trump on there or reports something about Trump that's new. And I don't think there's anyone in the mood to save his career right now.
Well, here's the reason I'm asking is because he's one that represents many. And you've pierced the veil of legacy media, and you've thrived in legacy and new media. So the real question that I think I'm trying to get at is, why is the vast majority of legacy media
Listen, I am Rocky the Dog Show. I am a C podcaster who tells 100% unequivocally the truth, sometimes even past our newscasters, that I have news, that I'm well researched on every subject, and I bring it to you straight. And I hope that you return to my channel, Rocky the Dog Show, return to my channel on TikTok, return to it on YouTube, and return to it on Twitter, and return to it on Rumble. I would really appreciate Rocky the Dog Show. Joe Vinny is my name. I'm your host. Okay, go ahead.
Targeting Trump, or have they targeted Trump? How come their agenda is elect Kamala at all costs? Okay, now that's not an option, but most are relentlessly continuing to critique him and his cabinet, of which I have some questions for you because I don't even really understand. To be honest, it's confusing me. So why is that their agenda? What am I missing about that? And then
they've always been left. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, and then subsequently, that's why I'm wondering what the alternative is, because it's like, do they go and make peace and try to present a more neutral point of view, or do they continue to just relentlessly go after him, which could compromise in my...
What they should do is say, listen, the news I've been perpetrating to the American people, I've been podcasting and presenting, has been untrue. I have presented it with a bias. I apologize for that. It will never happen again. From this point forth, I'm not asking you to trust me fully, but just let my actions speak louder than my words. I will podcast the truth. I will never be on the other side of the opposite of the truth of the American people and their will. And then right there, they'll start a healing process, and Americans are very forgiving.
Opinion, his ability to have a successful second term like the Russia hoax the first time.
So first of all, they are left, and they've been left for a long time, and they've been doing this to Republicans for a long, long time, long before Donald Trump came on the scene.
Right.
So it's not entirely about Donald Trump. It doesn't really matter who it would be. If it were a Republican, they would be doing this to him. That's a time-honored tradition on the left and with our media, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. They really hate Trump because he doesn't kowtow to them, because he doesn't comply with any of their declared norms, because while he does need them, his attention is his oxygen. He will be quick to discard them if they don't do what he wants, and they can't stand that. They're used to being able to control a politician or someone in power more with their negative coverage.
They're on the verge of getting no access to the White House and not deemed a credible source. That's what the will of the people have mandated Trump to do, and I hope that Trump sticks to it and does it.
Or their threats of negative coverage. So I think that's all in the mix right now. But as to your second question, no, it's fine. Media is getting more polarized by the day, and it's a natural, welcome, expected, necessary reckoning.
Is it?
We used to be this way in our country. Yeah.
I heard
We
you
used to be
say
this
they've
way.
radicalized you, and I feel myself slipping, being less neutral, and I'm alarmed by that. I'm getting more aggressive in my arguments about health, about RFK. The tolerance is leaving me. And then when you said they radicalized me, and they did, Megan, they forged you in fire. They created their biggest adversary. And it's like, is there no going? So you think it's a good thing? Why?
Yeah, because Jillian, I think like you, I came up, in a Democrat family.
All lies are no good. All deceit is no good. Do you like being lied to? Do you like your girlfriend or boyfriend lying to you, or your husband or wife lying to you, or your mother, father lying to you, or your brother, sister lying to you? Do you like your business partner lying to you? Nobody likes to be lied to. So the people that hold these channels, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, The View, MSNBC, they all need to be held to as enemy combatants of the United States. The things that they did, the psychological warfare that they did on people, the lies of COVID they pushed people out of business, they mocked people, they went ahead and lawsuited people. They sure censored me. I'm a small channel, Rocky the Dog Show, and I've been censored, and I hate being censored by TikTok, and I hate being censored by YouTube, and I would wish you would stop censoring me, just be a neutral platform, and let me just speak my opinion, because I am a right-wing conservative, and I'm allowed on your platform by law. You have a platform that's supposed to be neutral. Please allow it to be neutral. Do not censor me because you don't like the narrative. And I know that you censored me. You didn't like the narrative over the January 6th, people being held and detained and being freed. So you called me a community guidelines violation. And you're stopping my videos from going further than they should. Can you please stop doing that? I would appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much.
Surrounded by all Democrats. Most of my friends this day are mostly Democrats. So I have a lot of love in my heart for Democrats. It's not that I hate Democrats or I hate people who are on the left or who disagree with me politically. No, my mom's a Democrat. Like, people who I love more than anything are Democrats. Yeah. It's fine. I have nothing in my heart that's evil toward them. But these ideas and these arguments and the people who are at the top of the leftist power center, like the Scarboroughs of the world, I have zero tolerance for them. Okay. There's no love in my heart for people.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like.
Preparatory school in Maryland. Your father, Bobby Kennedy, is running for the presidential nomination with the Democrats. And during this process, on June 5th, 1968, he was at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. As he was leaving the ballroom, he decided to go through the kitchen. And I guess his bodyguard, FBI agent Bill Barry, told him to avoid the kitchen because it was very crowded. As he was going through, shaking hands with everyone, a 24-year-old Palestinian man named Saran shot him with a .22 caliber revolver. He was hit 3 times. 5 other people were wounded as well. When you found out that your dad had gotten killed, what went through your mind?
Well, first of all, I would dispute that description of what happened.
Okay.
I don't believe that Sirhan's bullets ever hit my father.
Okay.
And neither did the coroner Thomas Noguchi, who's probably
Thomas Noguchi was the coroner, and neither do I believe Sirhan's bullets ever hit JFK. That's a fact. I think it was the CIA, and they used Sirhan as the patsy.
the most famous coroner in American history, who did an autopsy that is known as the perfect autopsy. He actually flew in the chief coroners of all the every branch of the military service to sit in the surgery theater to watch what he did because he knew what had happened in Dallas, and he didn't want to repeat. And what he found, Sirhan had 8 shots. He had a 22 revolver, or 8 shots in it, and he fired 2 shots at my father. One of those shots hit, the first shot hit Paul Schrade, who was the UAW, the United Auto Workers deputy chief, there was only 2 unions that supported my father, the United Auto Workers and Cesar Chavez union. And Paul Schrade had recruited Cesar Chavez to the United Farm Workers, so he was very close to my dad. He got shot in the head, and he was okay. And, he actually died a year and a half ago and spent the last 20 years of his life trying to get Sirhan out of prison, the man who shot him. The other shot went past my father's head and hit a door jamb behind him, and it was later removed by the LAPD. It was dug out of the door jamb. The whole door jamb was removed. He was then pounced upon by 6 men, including Rafer Johnson, who was the 1960 decathlon champion, gold medal Olympian, one of my father's closest friends, and Rosie Greer, who was one of the, fearsome foursome, who had been a bodyguard for my dad. He was, one of the most famous football players of his time. And 4 other people, including the guy who was, and they couldn't get it. So he fires 6 more shots in the opposite direction and empties the chamber of his gun. He's always in front of my father, by the way. My father, he's sitting with his back to a steam table, and they bent him over the steam table, and he fired the bullets this way. As you pointed out, those bullets each hit people. So 5 people, one of them got hit twice. So if you just do the math, my father got shot 4 times from behind. And he only hit 8 bullets in his gun. He didn't reload. We know what happened the first 2, and we know what happened to the second 6. We know what happened to every one of those bullets. My father was killed from behind. He was shot 4 times. One of the shots went harmlessly through the shoulder pad of his suit. The other 3 were fatal or potentially fatal. And one of them was right behind his ear. All of them were contact shots. That's what Thomas Noguchi found, meaning the barrel of the gun was either touching his skin or his clothing and was and left a carbon tattoo, or was close enough, within an inch, close enough to leave a carbon tattoo. And the gun was being held at an upward angle. So he was shot from behind by somebody who was standing behind him with the gun pressed between the 2 of them and firing. And that man was almost certainly Eugene Thane Cesar, who was a security guard who had been hired the day before. So they already knew when he got the job, he already knew my father was going to be at that hotel. His full-time job.
This is a completely different narrative than what we've been told, haven't it?
Was at the Lockheed plant, and before that he had worked at another defense plant, which was Howard Hughes' company, and he had top security classifications at that plant. Lisa Pease, who's a researcher, has found documents where he self-identifies as a CIA agent. He ended up leaving the country. He was very outspoken against my father. He believed that my father would start a race war, and my father would put blacks in charge of the country. and he hated blacks. And he ended up leaving the country. He died about 1.5 years ago in the Philippines. Before he died, I tried to go over there and interview him. He originally said that it would cost me $10,000, but he would do it. And then when I got close to going, he said it's going to be 15. And then a day before I left, he said it's going to be 25,000. So then I thought he's playing a game.
Yeah.
And I ended up not going. But I can't prove that my father was killed by the CIA, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. And then,
He can't prove it, but when Trump gets in and declassifies the documents for the JFK killing, I'm sure we'll find out at that point. We're going to see if we could splice one more video in with
do anything to win. You had this wonderful relationship with your mother, mutual idolatry, which a lot of mothers and sons have in Louisiana. In the documentary, and would you slap your mama to win an election? Of course I would. And you know what else? If I told my mama, I got to slap you to win. And she said, son, is that going to help you close the sale? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, go ahead and slap me. Go ahead and slap me. You do anything you can to win.
Newt Gingrich is the former Speaker of the House. So, Speaker, when you see Democrats come and do shows and confess their sins after a loss, is this what normal campaigns do?
Well, sure. I mean, look, all of these folks are out there, not counting James Carville, who I've known and loved for years. He's one of the great characters in American politics. These other folks, they all are just totally at the end of their career. If they can't find a way to spin their way out of this, all of them are going to the nursing home or to some retirement village because they failed. Then they didn't fail just modestly. They took $1 billion plus, threw it all away, had the dumbest possible scheduling, but around, frankly, a pretty dumb candidate. And the net effect is and some of these folks I know personally are very smart, but they got caught up in a cycle where they all look now like they're complicit in what was one of the dumbest races in American history.
Why are they talking about Rogan or the spending? Joe broke the bank and he broke the border, and any Democrat was going to lose this race. Why don't they talk about what got him into this mess in the first place?
Because then they wouldn't be Democrats. Look, the great crisis of the Democratic Party is their policies.
Yeah.
Everything they really need to do to be acceptable, this will come up in 2026 in the off-year election. If these folks cannot get rid of being who they are, they're going to, I think, lose again in 26 in a historic election such as FDR had in 1934. And the reason's simple. The country doesn't want their policies. The country doesn't believe in their values. And the country thinks they can't perform. Now, the challenge for the Democrats is this is not a communications issue.
Why were their values shoved down our throats so drastically? The LGBTQ, their policies they were shoving down our throat. You're racist. You have to apologize. You need to give them 40 acres and a mule. You need to give them reparations. DEI, DSG, DSE, diversity, equity, governance, DSG. Yeah, I mean, what in the world is all that, man? The reverse racism. I got sick of it. I got sick of the homelessness. That I was homeless. I was homeless due to a car accident that took my leg off above the knee. That I was in a wheelchair. That was not my fault, but I was going in a direction that I shouldn't have been going. And as a result, the devil had a trap for me. And these CIA and State Farm actors and were involved with several cars in an accident, a getaway vehicle, the one that hit us from behind, the one that was on the freeway, all taken out by the same insurer, by State Farm, all taken out 3.5 weeks away from the accident. I mean, it was extremely suspicious. Me and my fiance drove into it. She wasn't really my fiance; she was my girlfriend, and she ended up getting killed. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't her fault. But we ended up getting not a penny for the accident. We ended up getting a horrible lawyer, and communist California needs to change. The Department of Transportation, the State Bar, the District Attorney's Office, the FBI were all complicit in stealing $3.5 million and more. And the court dates they held with these courtrooms, like where Donald Trump said the courtrooms are fraudulent. They were so fraudulent that they were holding court in a courtroom. When I went to go in there, which my name was on the docket, I wasn't even allowed in the courtroom because they were committing fraud without me, and they were all having court and splitting up the money without me. And that's how corrupt California had turned into. That's how corrupt our penal system had turned into. And I could tell you worse, but I'm not going to in this video. So this video, I just want to get into the corruption is so serious that I hope Trump that you really change it, because I have videos that I want to send you that I hope Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson, Benny Johnson, any of the podcasters that get a hold of this video that want to interview me. I was did 14 years and 7 months in prison. I'm in a wheelchair now. I work out every day. I'm sound mind. I podcast. I podcast the same situations you do, except I'm very well researched on FISA, National Defense Authorization Act, on the border, on the HR2 bill, on on space, weapons in space, on the NATO treaty, the Warsaw Pact, the Minsk Agreement, the nuclear treaty with Russia, the overthrowing of the government in 2014, the coups that we get involved in, the blood that we have on our hands as a nation. Not only are we hurting American treasure, we're murdering other people. Tulsi Gabbard, get that in your portfolio when you say, hey, we're not only hurting American treasure and killing them, you're also killing innocent human beings and the deep state and these unnecessary regime change wars. I hope you include them as human beings that have died, and that have died at the hands of the U.S. government, and that we cannot keep reaping bad things, because whatever a man sows to, that shall he reap. And if we keep reaping havoc on other countries, we're going to get it reaped on us one day.
It's not a better advertising issue. It's not a smarter candidate issue. The problem is the core of the Democratic Party has drifted away from America. And today, they're confronted with the reality that Donald Trump represents the values of the core of the American people, and they don't.
Can they change their values at 50, 60, 70 years old?
No, they're idiots.
Well, sure, they can do almost anything if they're desperate enough. I mean, it took the Republicans, about 70 years to recover from Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, God.
But they eventually did.
70 years.
Reagan.
70 years in the wilderness.
And they need to get off that Lyndon B. Johnson Act of 1969, where they subverted the churches, and the churches can't preach what they want to preach. I hope Donald Trump gets a hold of that message, and the preachers get a hold of Donald Trump, because we need you pastors, and you've been nowhere to be found. You've been acting like cowards, and you've been peddling the gospel for too much money. It's gone on too long, and you guys need to repent, along with our country needed to repent. All right. Thank you. God bless you, and have a great day.